Here. All right, we are here joined with our regular season champ, Mikey Tambury, owner of the Seventh Floor Crew. Thanks for joining, Mikey. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Regular season champ. Can't complain. Coming off of a big week against Zeev, and I am ready to take on Baden this week.
All right. No, we'll get into all this, but again, first off, congratulations on your great regular season. Put together a great team. But take me back. I know you were very active before the draft. A lot of pre-draft moves, a few in-season moves, but what were some of the main drivers? Helped you put together such a great team this year.
So I'm going to touch base on a lot of this. I think this is going to be a pretty lengthy answer here, but made some notes. I don't want to leave anything out. I'm going to start at the beginning. So historically in this league, I have been a very terrible drafter, and I'm the first to admit it. I've missed on many first round picks over the years. And I kind of figured this time around, I don't want to be in that position again. I'm going to make sure my team is set with the guys I want before the draft even starts. And I did everything in my power to make that happen in this offseason. Going into the draft, I felt great about my position. I had 3 first round picks. I had a whole lot of mid round picks. I had a really solid group of keepers in Cooper Kupp, Garrett Wilson, and potentially Brees Hall, who I ended up not keeping. And there was a lot of controversy over that. I got a lot of
Well documented on that one.
got a lot of heat for that decision, but I stand by the fact that I made the correct decision there for 2 reasons. Number one, most importantly, I think a lot of people fail to realize the significance of Garrett Wilson's keeper value being in the 8th round instead of the 6th round. Essentially gives me 1 extra year where I can keep him, and I believe he's going to be an elite receiver option for all of those 3 or 4 years. I can have him on my team as my secondary keeper. But more importantly than that, even without keeping Brees Hall, that freed up the 14th pick, which I have as an asset that I could use to draft somebody else. He's not locked into that pick. And I eventually used that pick to trade up and get Travis Kelce. Had I kept Brees Hall, none of that would have been able to happen. Wilson would have been in the 6th round, and I would have not ended up with Kelce on my team. And hindsight being 2020, Kelce didn't have the year we all expected him to have. But even though he wasn't his normal elite self, he still finished the year as tight end number 2 overall. And that's after he missed the first week of the season with an injury, and he had injuries hampering him all year. Plus Mahomes playing like shit for whatever reason. So
Yeah.
even with everything stacked against him, he still finished tight end 2 overall. And I don't regret any of those moves whatsoever. And once those keepers were set, and I made my decision to do that, I decided that I wanted to go quality over quantity. So I had a million picks in rounds 1 through 4, and I could have ended up with a very, very deep team. And I decided I'm going to make sure I have the best starting lineup as possible, and I don't really care about the depth. I'll get through it, and as long as my guys are there for the playoffs, I'm going to have a shot to win this league. And the first meaningful trade that kind of went under the radar, and you may even forget about this, was I traded up to you to acquire the 11th overall pick. I gave up picks number 25 and 43 to move up to 11, and I already had pick number 10. And I was thinking at one of those picks, I'm going to try to get maybe I didn't have 10. I might have had something else around there.
Yeah, it
But
was somewhere late first, I remember. Well, and it's funny because you traded with me, but you really traded with John Finnerty, but neither here nor there.
with John Finnerty. So after doing this trade, I now had 4 first round picks. And with this particular pick, I was targeting either Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, but I knew realistically both of them probably would be gone by then. And at that point, I figured I would either take Joe Burrow or Mark Andrews. And neither one of them worked out, as neither one of them are playing football anymore. But that was the strategy, and unfortunately, it didn't work out. But that was the first trade, which led to the sequence of the next 3 big trades, which number 1 was Christian McCaffrey, which turned out to be the best possible deal anybody could have made. I gave up the 5th overall pick, a 4th round pick, and 2 6th round picks for Christian McCaffrey, who currently has over 100 points more than the second best running back. So that trade worked out better than I could have ever even imagined. And he is, in my opinion, he's the MVP in the NFL this year. I don't care about quarterbacks or Brock Purdy or any of that shit. Christian McCaffrey is the best player in the NFL, and I think he deserves to win the MVP. So that was the big move. But then the move that put me over the top in some eyes, mainly Evan Ogle, when he wanted to quit the league and not show up, was when I traded my first round pick next year for Josh Jacobs. And at that point, I'm stacked. I still have a ton of picks. I've got McCaffrey, who's the best. I've got Josh Jacobs, who led the league in rushing last year. I've got a really solid wide receiver core, and I still have 3 first round picks. And I stuck to my guns and I said, I still want to try to move up. I still want Travis Kelce. And going into this draft, the only thing on my mind was Travis Kelce or bust. Kelce, no matter what. I'm not doing anything except getting Kelce on my team. And I was going to do it whatever it took, I was making that happen. And somewhere along the lines, I had a deal worked out with Baden and with Sean, and it was a 3-way deal where I was getting what I wanted, and it was going to get me Travis Kelce. And I don't remember the specifics of it, but I remember Baden fucked me over, and he cut me out of the deal. And him and Sean did their own deal, where they basically swapped what I wanted to be involved in, and then Baden thought he was getting one up on me, and he was getting Travis Kelce. However, I went to Buzz and I said, I'm willing to overpay so badly that this deal makes no sense for me, but I'm willing to do it just to get back at Baden and make sure he does not end up with Travis Kelce. And that's what I did. I gave up the 4th overall pick, the 14th overall pick, and a couple more picks to move up from 4 to 2, and I got my guy. And I think it all worked out, being that I won the regular season, so I have no regrets whatsoever. I think my team's in great shape moving forward. And the last thing I want to touch on this topic here is a quick recap of my draft, because I did say I historically have a very bad draft, and this year I lived up to my reputation for sure. So after all of my maneuvers, I had 6 draft picks in the first 10 rounds. So really none. I basically gave up all of my depth, all of my picks to get elite players. So the first pick was number 16 overall, and I took Joe Burrow. And that obviously did not work out. He sucked the entire year. He had like 2 good weeks midway through, and then he broke his wrist. So that pick, I grade an F. My next pick after that was in the 4th round, number 49 overall. I take Khalil Herbert, who sucked all year. He doesn't even have a job anymore. So I'm going to give that pick an F. My next pick, a couple picks later, also in the 4th round. The guy's currently on the waiver wire, Jerry Jeudy. So I'm going to give that pick an F. Then I didn't pick again until the 8th round. And in the 8th round, I got Odell Beckham Jr. I thought about giving this one a D, but then I realized I haven't even started this guy one time all year. So for that reason, I'm giving it an F. And then in the 10th round, I had 2 picks. My first pick was Kirk Cousins, who obviously is no longer playing. So I'm going to give that one an F. And then my next pick, also in the 10th round, was Buffalo Bills defense, who I started twice all year. They were never a difference maker for me, and I cut them, and they're no longer on my team. So I'm going to give that one an F as well. So every pick that I made this year, I graded an F. And even though I continue to just be an awful drafter in this league, my in-season management skills and my ability to maneuver around terrible drafting and a lot of injuries, I still was able to come out on top in the regular season, and I'm 2 wins away from coming out on top overall.
Yeah, no, because a lot of, I mean, we've always known your struggles with the draft. It's well documented. So this strategy definitely kind of worked out for you. And I mean, with the injuries too. I mean, it's another kind of thing managing throughout the season with, Cooper Kupp going down. I mean, Aaron Rodgers getting hurt on the first 4 plays definitely kind of hurt Garrett Wilson for sure. I'm surprised that you referred to him as Travis Kelce. I know you kind of like to, he has another name called Mr. Pfizer to some, but he hasn't been himself despite, still tight end 2. But, how did you kind of manage through all those injuries to kind of still, come out on top?
Well, yeah, you did. You mentioned Kupp. You mentioned Garrett Wilson. Mr. Pfizer did also miss week 1 and has been banged up most of the season. So maybe if he didn't keep injecting all these random fucking vaccines and shots and shit into his body, maybe he'd be able to last all year. Kind of like Aaron Rodgers coming back so fast. So, unfortunately, I did have a lot of injuries, and I fought through adversity all year. Pretty much when all these guys went out early, you destroyed me week one. I don't know if you remember that or not, but I think you beat me by
I do.
50 points or so week one,
Mm-hmm.
missing all of these guys. And at that point, I could have probably just stayed put, fought through it, and made the playoffs and hope my guys got healthy. But a wise man once told me that I should not settle for mediocrity, and I didn't. So I wanted to do whatever I could to get better, to improve my team. And the first move I made was to acquire Mike Williams from John Finnerty. When Cooper Kupp was hurt, Jerry Jeudy was hurt, who at the time I still had high hopes for. I needed a wide receiver desperately, and I turned to all reliable John Finnerty, who gives me a player who blows out his ACL the week later. So that didn't work, and that I traded my 6th-round pick to get him, plus Khalil Herbert, who was useless anyway. So now I've already given up my first for Josh Jacobs. I gave up my 6th for Mike Williams, who's now out for the year. So my team is banged up, and I'm essentially out of bullets at this point because I've already given up my picks, and I can trade either a 4th or a 5th, and that's it. So at that point, I thought I'm going to give up my 4th or my 5th for the best player I can possibly get because I'm all in, and I need to be all in. And my strategy at that point was get the best player you can for a flex with a 5th-round pick and make sure you get your cuffs, because if Jacobs or McCaffrey goes down, I am fucked. So I made sure I got Elijah Mitchell. I made sure I got Zamir White, who obviously came in very handy for me last week. And that was my main goal, which I did. And then the 5th-round pick, best player, in my opinion, that I was going to get was Gabe Davis. And that, just like everything else, did not pan out for me, as Gabe Davis has had a 0 in more than half of the games since I've acquired him, despite being on the field for every single snap. It makes
It's very impressive how Gabe Davis can be on the field and do nothing so often.
He's basically the Tony Snell of the NFL. I don't understand it. The guy's in one of the most high-powered offenses in the league, where Josh Allen can throw the ball upwards of 40 times a game. He's on the field for every snap. He's a captain on their team. And for whatever reason, he doesn't get the ball. It just does not make any sense. But I had high hopes for him, and it didn't work out. So now, going to the deadline, I'm completely out of bullets. I have nothing left to trade. My guys are hurt. Joe Burrow is out for the year, and I am scrambling because deadline week, I lose Joe Burrow for the rest of the season. I actually don't have a backup quarterback on my roster, and my starting flex player, Gabe Davis, puts up a 0 every other week. So I'm scrambling, and I'm thinking, what the fuck? How am I going to get out of this hole? And it's a shame, but unfortunately for Tom Phone, unfortunately for me, Mark Andrews' injury came at the perfect time, and I took advantage of a desperate Tom Phone, and I acquired Justin Fields and Amari Cooper from him to solve both of my issues without losing a single one of my starting players. And there's no possible way that I was going to get a better flex player or a better quarterback from anybody else in the league without losing one of my starters.
Yep.
Solved both of my problems, and then through a series of other trades where I essentially was like that kid who traded a paperclip for a Porsche. I made like 3 or 4 other moves that upgraded me from Amari Cooper to Devontae Smith, and Devontae Smith has been fantastic since I acquired him. So thank you, Travis, for that. And that basically put my team in the position it is right now. And the addition of Justin Fields and Devontae Smith over Joe Burrow and Gabe Davis, it's like I haven't even lost a beat. I honestly think my team's better than it was. So a series of moves put me in a very good spot, and I'm very happy with the way the team looks right now.
No, it's definitely kind of a good in-season man. You gotta adapt or die mostly. So, but let's switch gears a little bit. Again, you're another one of the original members here. So, been here since day one. How do you feel about the league as a whole, where we stand now, compared to where we've been? I know a lot has changed. How do you feel how do you feel this league is right now?
I think everybody would agree who's been in the league from day one. I don't think the league's ever been better than it is right now. I think we're at an all-time high in league activity. I believe you said that at one point in terms of trades, and I feel like in terms of engagement, everybody's engaged. The league's more competitive than it's ever been, despite the whole super team bullshit in the beginning of the year. We had a really, really solid all around competitive year. And I really think the league is at a better point right now than it's ever been. The transition from 12 teams to 14 teams has worked out perfectly. We added 3 really great owners, and Travis was a fantastic addition too. He's been very active, and Buddy was unfortunately the dead weight, and we cut him out of it. And since he got cut out, the league's been amazing. I got to pause for 1 second because someone's at my door right now. Hold on.
All right. We will hold and wait for Mikey to return here.
Sorry about that. I was having a new door installed at my house today, and it turned into a total disaster. And they have to come back tomorrow. So
Oh, geez.
that's that. But pretty much what I was saying is Buddy was unfortunately just not a good owner. He was not active. He was not engaged. He's the only person who I can ever think of in this league started either an injured player or a player on a bye in multiple situations. And that's just completely unacceptable in a league of this magnitude with the type of money we have on the line, the type of owners we have in here being very active and engaged. You just can't have stuff like that happen. That's what ruins a league. And I'm confident that we have 14 members now who are not going to let anything like that happen. And on top of the whole competitiveness and everything, we did have a very good year, but I do feel good about the fact that I believe the 4 teams left are really the 4 best teams. And there was through all the bullshit, all the injuries, all the adversity for everybody all year, I really do think it's good for the league that the 4 teams who deserved it most are the 4 teams left.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more on the competitive side this year. I mean, leading up until the trade deadline, even a couple weeks later, there's basically 12 teams that still, in theory, had a shot to make the playoffs, which is everything you want in a 14-team league. So, but again, even talking about the league, we're always looking to make changes if it warrants it to make it better. I mean, if there anything in your mind, if you had to change one thing about the league for the better, what would it be?
So obviously, I heard Evan's interview already. We all know how he feels about the defense. I'm not as adamant about that, but I do think there is room for improvement there. My biggest suggestion in terms of the defensive scoring is I'm not a fan of 2 points for the fourth down stops. I'd be in favor of reducing that to 1. There's a couple situations that I've been involved in this year where if a team is down big, they're going to go for it the whole second half on fourth down. If they're down big, it's a blowout, the game's over, and they don't even have a chance of getting it. And there can be a defense that picks up 8 points at the end of a game from a team just going for it on fourth down and not getting it. And that sucks. And that's when the defense scores add up really fast. And maybe there's other areas we can tweak, but just from experience this year, that's the main area that I would consider tweaking. But aside from the whole defensive scoring, something that I would like to propose in the offseason is I believe, and maybe I'm biased just because of my position this year, but I think that the regular season champ should get an automatic bye in the first round. And I think that the second bye should be determined from the 2, 3, and 4 seed, basically all playing each other in that week 14, and the highest of those 3 scores gets the other bye. And my reasoning for that is with how competitive this league is, winning the regular season is a major accomplishment. And I think that accomplishment needs to be properly rewarded. And getting the bye is that reward, in my opinion. Um, and then as far as week 15, I threw out in the chat before where the 2 teams with the bye can play each other in that week and then choose their opponent in the semifinals. I think that's worth talking about in the offseason. I think that's a fun wrinkle to, instead of having Evan Ogle black out on a beach in Miami during the week, it can keep him engaged and keep everybody engaged for that one extra week and kind of just add a fun little twist to it where maybe there's a little bit more on the line the next week because someone's got a chip on their shoulder. They were picked first to play them. So I don't know. There's a fun little wrinkle that's added there that I kind of like. And the last thing I would suggest tweaking is the payout structure. There's one area that I'm not a fan of, and I think we pay out too much money for it, and it's the weekly high points. We have 10% of the pot overall going to that, which comes in at about $53 a week. And I personally just think that's too high. I'd be in favor of dropping that to maybe 5% and then adding 2.5% to each of the regular season champ and the high points overall on the year, bumping each of them up, because right now those are lower payouts. And I just feel like both of those things are more important and more impressive than a random week where somebody could explode and go off.
All right. No, those are definitely good points. Definitely things that, I think there's a lot of conversations that could definitely be had about those in the off season. Which is why we'll have a good sit down with everybody, but definitely kind of keep those written down, definitely presented when the time's right. But I do like a lot of where those ideas are going. Can't say I'm in favor of all of them, but I think they're very good conversation points for sure.
Yeah, all worth a discussion.
Yeah. But yeah, let's look to the playoffs. You took a bump in that first bye week, even though putting up a good week against Ogle just kind of really outperformed anything that I think even himself thought. And you are going up, and you mentioned this like little mini rivalry, a little bit of preseason back and forth with Mr. Matt Australia from down under. So how are you feeling going into this playoff week, and what are going to be some of the keys for you to get back to the finals?
I feel great about it. I really like the way my team's shaping up right now. I like some of the matchups. I think number one, hopefully Josh Jacobs plays. If he doesn't play, I'm going to have an interesting decision to make for my RB2, either going out with Zamir White again, or if Pacheco doesn't play, Jerick McKinnon is definitely an option as well. And I would love to be able to start Jerick McKinnon against Baden in the playoffs, because he gave me more heat than anybody, because his CNN narrative is that I kept Jerick McKinnon over Breece Hall. So being able to start him against Baden, if Pacheco's out and Josh Jacobs doesn't play, I'm going to have a hard time not doing that, even if it's not the right move. It feels right.
That's going to be some good storylines if that comes to fruition for sure.
So that's definitely my number one tough decision that I'm going to need to make, depending on how the injury report shakes out. And I've got two big X factors. Number one is the Jets quarterback play. I have no idea what's going on there. Evan Ogle has no idea what's going on there. It seems like nobody in New York knows what's going on there.
Not even Andy Pettit, I don't think either.
Not even Andy. So if Trevor Siemian is starting that game, and both running back situations are what I just mentioned, and Pacheco doesn't play, even if Josh Jacobs does play, McKinnon then becomes a flex option over Garrett Wilson, because I really don't think I can trust Garrett Wilson in this game with Trevor Siemian playing, because that guy looked like he was not even capable of getting him the ball last week. So I saw Zach Wilson still in concussion protocol, which sounds like bullshit to me, because it wasn't even a concussion when the game started. It said he got taken out with fucking dehydration. So I don't know what's going on there. It's a total clusterfuck. And Garrett Wilson scares me. So there's a chance that I sit him for the first time all year, and it's in the semifinals of the playoffs. But I think that the X factor in the matchup and the player that I am going to either win or lose with is Justin Fields. Justin Fields could explode for 40, or he could be in single digits. And he's got a really good matchup against Arizona this week. It's a game the Bears should be winning. Right now, it looks like the weather's going to be kind of shitty, which could mean a lot of rushing yards for Justin Fields. So I trust the rest of my team to show up and do their job. And Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson are the two big X factors. And I think that I'm going to win or lose depending on how the two of them perform.
All right. No, those are, very well said. And it's a lot on the line, a lot of decisions, to prepare for this week, and a lot of fallout and storylines that'll come from those decisions. And I'm anxious. I can't wait to recap it next week. I'll tell you that. However it goes down. But again, outside of your finals run, attempting to get back there, these last 2 weeks, what are you most looking forward to, to close out this year?
There's not a whole lot else. I'm pretty locked into this matchup right now. I am really all in. My biggest motivation right now is the fact that I am trying to become the first ever 3-time champ this league has ever seen. And this is a big time prove it game for Mr. Pfizer. And we're going to see how he does. He's either going to prove his worth and make that trade worth it and send me back to the championship, or this will be the last game he ever plays on the 7th floor crew franchise.
Those are hefty words, and a lot looking forward to this week. Mikey, I appreciate the time. Fantastic conversation. Best of luck this week, and hopefully you get back to the finals. Hopefully I can meet you there. We'll have a good sit down talk about that if that happens. But enjoy the week. Good luck, and appreciate the time.
Sounds good. You do the same.
All right.
See you later.